Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Flow podcast by Highland Yoga, hosted by founder Elsie Brotherton and co-hosts Reedy Dukes and Annalie Burke. Highland Yoga is an Atlanta-based hot yoga studio founded in 2015 in the quaint neighborhood of Virginia Highlands. And it's hard to wrap our minds around just how much we've grown and evolved since then. We already know our community is hooked on whatever magic is within our walls, and we want to offer you more outside of that. We can't wait to dive deep into all things yoga and wellness, but more importantly, what makes our world go round: our teachers, our devoted students, our community offerings, and more. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in this week to Find Your Flow. I'm your host, Reedy Dukes, and I'm excited to be sitting down here with Mallory Hazen. Mallory, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me, Reedy.
Okay, so Mallory is one of our teachers at the studio. She is also a nutritionist. She's a master certified wellness coach. And so she has her 200-hour yoga teacher certification and specializes in yin yoga and trauma-informed yoga. She holds a master's degree in human nutrition and combines science-backed nutrition strategies with holistic wellness practices to help clients achieve optimal health. Leveraging her background in clinical and functional nutrition as well as corporate wellness, Mallory guides individuals in transforming their health and wellness. Whether it's managing stress, improving fitness, or finding work-life balance, her approach fosters lasting positive change. After experiencing a profound transformation in her own health through improved sleep hygiene, Mallory is now dedicated to helping clients optimize their sleep, reduce stress, and create routines that support restful sleep and overall well-being. I'm really excited about this topic. I want to hear from you first, a little bit about yourself, your educational background in nutrition. Let's start there.
Yeah, so I was a professional dancer for many, many years. My undergrad was in theater. And when I moved to Atlanta, I danced here for a while. And somewhere along the line, I started noticing that all dancers were fueling their body with almost only fast food. And that was terrifying to me. I grew up in Vermont and we always had our own garden and we just ate more local food there. It was more accessible. It's very challenging to actually import food into Vermont. And so it's much more expensive and it's cheaper if you just create your own. So we would can, we would freeze, we would have our own garden. And so watching all these people that were like eating fast food all the time, I was like, oh, okay. You guys want to have professional dance careers like this? This is scary. And just sort of developed a passion for helping people understand that they needed to fuel their body. Realized along the way that I loved explaining to people like where their food came from and how to create well-rounded meals. And I started doing my own research on that. And at some point was like, yep, I'm going to get a master's in nutrition. We're going to switch careers completely. And just waited until the time felt right in my dance career at that time. Then started working on my master's and started working in functional nutrition. So I have a lot of background in more foods that help with things. So we're creating well-rounded meals and we're making sure we're getting all of our nutrients, but also we're understanding that like ginger is helping us with our digestion and can help with a stomach ache. And if we have acid reflux, potentially we have low stomach acid and we could take a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. So more things that are food like acting as a remedy versus having to take a medication for it. So that was more of my training. And then adding in the wellness coaching was more recent discovery. So that was about 3 years ago that I did my wellness coaching training. And I think I was interested in that because it took everything I cared about and brought it all to one place. I love nature. I love yoga and movement. I love nutrition, obviously. I really have a passion for sleep and stress management. So being a wellness coach allowed me to pull all of my background into one place. So that's where I landed, having all of these things come together and being able to utilize them on a daily basis.
So what do you do for work now?
So, my full time job is at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and I am an employee wellness there. So, I'm technically a wellness coach there, but I help with all of our employee wellness programs there. So, I never see patients. I'm just there in the background supporting employees, doing anything from this kind of one on one coaching where I'm working on stress, sleep, fitness, nutrition, and also helping run bigger programs that we have. So, we do challenges for our employees, getting them to walk more, eat more fiber, join races, things like that. And then I just help run our daily programming. So we have fitness classes for our employees, a gym, and I'm in there as well.
And where does yoga fit into all this? When did you start doing yoga?
I actually started taking classes at Highland when we only had the Virginia Highlands location. So way back when, that was the first place I really enjoyed yoga. When I was in college, I tried to take some yoga. I think I took a hatha class, and as a dancer, I felt like I wasn't moving at all and was kind of miserable. So glad that I tried again and found Highland. And at Highland, I became part of the work trade program. I was one of the initiators of that program. And then years later, after I finished my master's, was ready to become a teacher. So now I teach over at the West Side location and some other places in Atlanta as well. But I fit that in on the side. It's a nighttime gig. It's a sub when I can. It's a added into whatever I can in my day-to-day life.
So you're doing a lot. Most of us are. But and I'm just thinking back to the dancer and fast food comment. I still can't even wrap my mind around that. That's basically the opposite that I would think. Okay, so many things going on at once. Where does sleep hygiene fit into this? Or like, what about your personal nutrition journey do you want to share with our listeners?
Okay. First of all, I think everything starts from our sleep. So many times I will talk to people in my nutrition business and they'll say, like, I can't figure out how to meal prep. I can't get up in the morning and make breakfast. I'm trying to fall asleep at night and I'm still hungry. And when I work backwards with people, I'll find like, what's the reason why you can't meal prep? And they'll be like, oh, well, getting up in the morning is like so frustrating and I don't feel like I'm getting enough rest. And so I just like grab whatever is convenient and fast. And so I don't put any effort into my breakfast or I skip breakfast entirely. And then when we go back from that, like, why are you feeling so exhausted and tired? And why is it so hard to wake up in the morning? And then it's like, well, I didn't go to bed when I should have gone to bed. I ended up scrolling on my phone. I overcommitted myself because I really got excited about some things. And then I found myself out way too late. And like in general, I just don't have a good sleep routine. So many things will root back to that, just not getting good rest. And your going to bed habits and your waking up habits are really the structure for your whole entire day. Like if we don't actually get out of bed, like none of our day happens. So I find that I end up talking about sleep so much in this wellness coaching, in nutrition, and we'll work on that first, and then we get to all the other things after we structure the sleep a little bit better.
That just, it sounds so natural and it's so correct that but I never would have thought about sleep hygiene being like where you start. But I think, and then I'm wondering, as a wellness coach, do you kind of feel like someone's therapist, like addressing their sleep issues sometimes?
There's a very fine line sometimes between wellness coaching and therapy. And sometimes I have to outsource for this also. I have to be like, okay, cool. We're like crossing outside of my scope of practice here. But in a way, it's like we're digging through all of our habits across the board are deep seated. Like our food habits start when we're a kid. We eat what we ate with our parents. We watched what the media told us. We saw what our friends had in the cafeteria or the lunchroom at school, and we wanted the snacks that they had. So what we eat now is so related to all of our childhood. And so, yeah, we're like ripping into a lot of stuff from years before when it comes to how we manage all of our lives, food specifically, but also sleep. Like we, a lot of the times, have the routine of sitting in front of the TV before bed, and then we sit there until we feel snoozy. we get ourselves ready for bed, we go to lay in bed, and then we're like not tired anymore. So there's lots of things that come from years before. And so occasionally the feeling of being a therapist does come up because we're talking about those things and people get emotional in my sessions and it's all very fine. But I do have to keep those boundaries sometimes for myself too.
Yeah. Well, it's just good you're looking at the whole picture. I think that's what it means to take a holistic approach. Um, okay. So where do you want to start with sleep hygiene? Like, obviously we want all the tips. How do you usually, how do you usually start to address it with your clients?
So I think the biggest thing is starting at our bedtime and considering what we're doing before we go to sleep. We have really busy lives. You established right in the beginning, like we've all got a lot going on all the time. And so setting aside time for us to actually wind down and be tired before we're going to bed doesn't happen as often. And this was something I had to come to terms with on my own. Like I would teach a yoga class that started at 7:35 at Highland, 7:45 at another location. So I'm not even getting out of the studio until 9 p.m. or later sometimes. I've got a full-time job. I've got to wake up in the morning and get going. And I would have this almost panic feeling as I was driving home, like, I've got to go right to bed. Like, I can't do anything. I can't shower tonight. I can't eat anything. I can't play with my cat. Like, I've got to get right in bed or I'm not going to get enough rest. And then I would have almost anxiety about going to sleep and about getting enough sleep that would keep me awake. And setting an evening routine, not rushing myself to bed, giving myself the space to go home, enjoy some time at home, wind down for real, enjoy my partner, my pet, a shower, a snack, a stretch, like whatever it was. Those things all helped me actually feel tired and like I was ready to go to bed. So sometimes I'd lay there in bed before this, feeling like I was never going to fall asleep, awake for hours because my mind was spinning still. And now I find myself drifting more peacefully into sleep because I'm actually giving my body time to adjust from all the things I did in my day to going to bed. So I think the sleep routine, your bedtime routine is major. So I'm wondering if you'll tell me a little bit about your bedtime routine.
Sure thing. If you are someone close to me in my life, you know that I wind down pretty early because it takes me a while to wind down. And I think, I'm a yoga teacher. So in the evenings that I teach classes, I'm also an introvert. So it's like I'm putting out all this energy. It's a heated room. I'm there for a few hours socializing. So anytime an introvert comes home after socializing, like they need some time. So yeah, I usually get home and and I'm just speaking to the days that I teach it in the evening, but I'll start making dinner pretty shortly after I get home. Um, I'm a big TV watcher, like most Americans are. I spend time with my dog. I I think showers at night are really grounding. Like even if you have to take a second one in one day, I think that's always been very grounding for me. I don't want to like totally give away everything because I want you to but go ahead.
Awesome. So, yeah, I think those are pretty typical evening things, right? We're going to come home from work. We're going to have something to eat. If we've got pets or someone else living in our home, we're going to spend time with them and just sort of allowing ourselves to wind down from the day, showering or taking care of ourselves in whatever way we need to. So I think the important thing here is to actually allow ourselves the disconnect from all the things that we're doing during the day. So a lot of those things are done on our phones, on our laptops. The TV shows us a million things at one time. And it's hard for our brains to literally shut down when we're being fed so much information all of the time. Our phone is probably the biggest contender of this, where as we swipe, we're being expected to process so many different things at one time. So we, for instance, on Instagram might see that like someone just had a baby and that's exciting. And then we're getting updates on the war in Gaza. And then we have the presidential election going on. And then someone's getting married, yay, and someone got a new job. And it's like we have these ups and downs and ups and downs, and we're not giving our brains time to actually think about all those individual things while we're moving through them. We're just sending our bodies through them, sending them through our eyes. So, like, our brain has to process those things at some point. And a lot of the times, those are the things that will come up when we're laying down to bed. Another thing is blue light at night. So, if we lived outside, we would not have that bright light in the evening. There's actually something called the camping effect. And if you've ever, have you ever been camping? Okay. So when you went camping, did you find yourself like feeling tired as the sun went down?
Absolutely.
So the camping effect is kind of a phenomenon that like puts all of the very organic ways that our body would create a circadian rhythm, and it gives them to us in a very natural way because we're outside. So we're getting natural sunrise light and sunset light and that midday light, which is the bright blue light spectrum as well. And so those things tell us, hey, it's time to wake up. Hey, it's time to go to bed. And during the middle of the day, it's time to be awake. When we're at home, we're maybe inside during the day, we probably don't see sunrise and sunset very often. We definitely don't have our feet on the bare earth. We're not getting to experience all of those things that just occur in our world. Also, when we're camping, we're like breathing really good fresh air. We're probably a little bit more active than we normally were. And we probably have some good company, right? So we're like chill. We got good vibes going on. We got friends. We're enjoying ourselves. And we're looking at the light of a fire that is similar to the light of the sunset. So we've got those oranges and reds. So the blue light itself is like what's keeping us awake. And when we take that out and we have this camping effect going on, our body starts to adjust to a circadian rhythm that is with the sunrise and sunset. So, especially in the summer in the South, we have long days. When I go camping, I find myself wanting to go to bed at like 9 o'clock. I'm like, okay, cool. The sun's down. I got like 20 more minutes in me and I'm ready to go to sleep. Even if normally maybe I wouldn't go to bed until 10:30 or so. And then in the morning, as the sun's coming up, your body starts to naturally wake up because you're outside. You have more access to that sunlight getting into your eyes. It's coming through the windows of your tent. So your circadian rhythm will start to adjust based off of this. Now, when we throw blue light into the mix at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, our brain's like, okay, is it the middle of the day? Am I supposed to be awake now? So I think the biggest thing is starting to figure out how to put our phones down, put TVs off, put laptops away, and just give ourselves a little bit of space through our evening where our eyes can adjust to the light that's outside, or we can dim our lights inside or find like salt lamps, things like that, that have that like orangey red glow to them. Those are going to stimulate our melatonin production. So melatonin says, heck no, I'm not coming into the picture when there's blue light. And when we give it those orange and red lights, then it's like, okay, it is time for sleep. The sunset's happening. We're winding down, even if it's sort of an artificial light. So getting rid of cell phones and electronics in general is probably number one thing. Now, question for you, you come home and you have dinner and you watch TV. How much time between when you turn off TV, cell phones, and all of that is there until you actually like lay down, shut your lights off, and try to go to bed?
I am laying in bed on my phone, not for long, but every single night I'm on my phone. I might do a short meditation, but I mean, it's I check my alarm like 30 times and not really. I look at it a bunch of like kind of OCD, like look at it a bunch of times and then finally give up and surrender to sleep.
It's so funny that you say the thing about the alarms because I hear that so frequently, especially with healthcare workers. Cause like if you miss a shift as a healthcare worker, you get an occurrence. It's like a big deal. um, and so my healthcare workers are so worried that their alarms are not going to go off. But I think all of us have this instinct where throughout the day, anytime we have a question about something, we're like, oh, we can pick up our phone and Google it. Anytime we want to check on something, we can pick it up. If we need to look at an email, we can pick it up. We can text a friend immediately. So this instant gratification that we have is really hard to get rid of in the beginning at the nighttime. And we have an issue where like we'll be all set. We will have set the alarm. Like the alarm has probably never failed you. You've probably never not set it, maybe like once in college, but you probably never not set the alarm. And still our brain's like, wait, I need to send this last text. Wait, I got to check on this email. What time do I have to go do that thing tomorrow? Is my alarm set? What time did I set it for? And so first of all, this is an exercise in trusting ourselves, right? So like you've set your alarm. Your alarm's probably like a recurring alarm, right? And so it's on, you're good. And we also don't need to respond to everything instantaneously. So we could keep a notepad next to our bed. And if we have those things come up like, oh, shoot, I was supposed to send that message. Oh, darn, what time is that thing happening tomorrow? Like write it down. Because a lot of the times we don't keep as much in our brain these days because we do have the ability to so quickly take care of whatever we want to take care of. Who's got this little computer in our hands all the time? So we keep like a notepad next to the bed. It's like you think of something last minute. All right, I'm going to write this down. I'm going to take care of it tomorrow. So then we don't have to like pick up the phone 10 times. We're like finding a way to put it down and leave it down for the whole night. How do you think your night would change if you were to give yourself even a half hour of phone downtime committed every night before going to bed?
I think that that would improve my life. And I think I have this problematic thought loop of like, if that's going to take me 30 extra minutes, that's 30 minutes less sleep I'm going to get. Therefore, I am going to be more tired in the morning.
Yes. And this was one that I went through too. I think this is really common. So I would try to give myself this maximum amount of time in bed, like 10 hours sometimes. And being a light sleeper, I was like, well, if I'm not in bed for 10 hours, considering all the times I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night, I'm never going to get enough rest and I'm not going to feel rested in the morning. When the truth is, giving ourselves like 7 to 9 hours in bed, depending on the person, and you have to figure that out for yourself, how much your body needs, is enough. And so sometimes we think we need that more time in bed, but the more time that we technically spend in bed, not sleeping, the more our body starts to be trained to be in bed, not sleeping. So if we're spending a ton of time in bed, swiping on our phone, if we wake up in the morning, we hit our snooze button 13 times, all that time is time that we've told our body it's okay to be in bed and not be asleep. Instead of setting a routine that really pinpoints the times that we're going to be asleep or we're going to be in bed trying to sleep and making that be really consistent across the board. So next point to make is setting a consistent bedtime and wake time. So starting from the back end of this, where we're trying to get ourselves to sleep, picking a time that we're going to go to bed every single night and picking a time that we're going to wake up every single day. And for some of us to teach, like, what's your earliest yoga class?
Be there at 6:30 would be the earliest I need to report to duty.
Yeah. So some of us that have a thing or two that keep us out like really late or get us out much earlier in the morning than normal, that feels kind of hard sometimes. Or even those of us that have to get up for work midweek and go into the office earlier, and then on the weekends want to lounge. Things like lounging for 2 or 3 extra hours in the morning in bed on the weekends can actually disrupt the circadian rhythm more than it's giving us extra rest. So if we were to pick a median time that we could go to bed and wake up every single day, we start to train our bodies, and we're training our bodies to do everything. When you wake up in the morning, your body tells you it's hungry. At a certain time in the night, your body's like, hey, we're going to sleep. You probably midday get hungry again. Maybe you work out in the morning. You start to be like, I got the itch. I got to go work out. I haven't done it yet. So we're training our bodies all the time, and we train our circadian rhythm as well. So for me, I go to bed at 10:30, I wake up at 6:30, and that is midweek and begrudgingly sometimes on the weekends as well. But it tells my body that that is my 8 hours of sleep time. And that's 10:30 to 6:30. And like, honey, if we don't do it at 10:30, we're not staying in bed until 9. So you better figure it out. So to be honest, the first like 2 weeks that I did this and got really strict with myself, it sucked. It was the worst because I didn't fall asleep right away. And my body wanted to stay in bed until 8 because I didn't fall asleep. And normally I would have given myself that flexibility. But when I started being like, nope, we're getting out of bed at 6:30, like no matter what, then eventually I was kind of tired enough that we just crashed at that 10:30 time.
That's a question I wanted to ask you. I don't know if you, the idea of sleep debt and the whole concept around that, is that something that aligns with your approach, or could you explain what sleep debt is?
So sleep debt is tough. There's studies showing that when we get a significantly reduced amount of sleep, we're just kind of causing, I hate to use the word damage, but there's not a much better word than that. We're doing a disservice to our body. And that's not something that we can necessarily make up for. If we have too many nights where we're really getting like in the 5 to 6 hour range of sleep, not good for us in the long term. In terms of sleep debt, I think we can play with our window of sleep a little bit, where some days, say you know that you need 8 hours of sleep, you might find that some days you get more like 8:15, 8:30, and then some days you get more like 7:30, and you start to feel okay with that little bit of fluctuation. But in terms of like crashing for a whole weekend after not sleeping the whole week or something, that doesn't really help us actually make up for rest.
Yeah, I hear that so often, and I can't help it. I think I'm not a great example of like most of the population because I am very, I mean, one, I don't work a 9 to 5 job. So every single day is different for me. Every single morning is a different time that I'm getting up and moving. Every night it's a little bit different. Um, so I do find it a little bit harder to find a sleep routine that's consistent, especially when I feel like I'm losing some sleep some days and I'm like, oh, well, sleep debt, I have to make up for it, 2 extra hours on Sunday or whatever. And I am also not one of the types of people who wakes up at 5 a.m., goes to the gym for an hour, comes home, wakes up the kids, makes the kids breakfast, packs the kids lunch, sends the kids off, goes to work, comes home, walks the dog, makes dinner, cleans up from dinner, finishes work. Like we Americans pack so much into our days. It's kind of scary. Or if you're, a young professional, you're going to the gym at 5 a.m. and then you're going to work and then you're going to happy hour and then there's a lot going on.
And I think that's a really good point, is that everyone's lives are really different. And sometimes we need to find a middle ground between way too much structure, like what you just described, where someone's like entire day is packed and there's never a moment to breathe. And sometimes when we have jobs like yours, where you're teaching and your schedule is all different, it might be a weekly structure, but it's not a day-to-day structure. So setting some sort of structure for yourself can be beneficial there. And when I say going to bed and waking up at the same time, that's a pretty big ish. So to start with, getting really strict with yourself might be helpful. And then you're going to find where sometimes there's an event that keeps you out too late. It's the holidays, you're traveling, but trying to figure out how you can maybe within like 15 to 30 minutes, keep that sleep time. So for me, I'm a dancer. I teach yoga. So like my sleep time is 10:30 to 6:30, but occasionally I'll have a rehearsal that will keep me out until 11. Like that sucks, first of all, but I'll come home and I still give myself my bedtime routine. So the bedtime routine is like totally the ticket for helping me actually fall asleep and feel tired.
Mallory, what is your bedtime routine?
So my bedtime routine is phone down at least an hour before bed. And that means that every single thing is taken care of. I have taken my phone, I have put it on its charger for the night. I will not look at it again. Most days, if I'm not teaching, I try to put it down an hour and a half to 2 hours before. Sometimes I'll have to go grab it for something in between, but the hour is my strict routine. So since my bedtime is 10:30, at 9:30, my phone goes down for the night. My partner and I do a nightly check-in where we just ask each other a question. It started as like, what was best part of your day? And we get a little bit more philosophical sometimes. But we just do one little check-in so that we make sure we see each other and have a good moment of conversation through the day. So that usually happens at 9:30. And then my cat, who has probably been far too neglected in her lifetime, gets a really solid amount of playtime now. And the face care routine that I was ignoring for years is actually happening. So it looks like me making sure I've got food ready for the next day because I'm gone for most of my day. And maybe I'll shower. Sometimes I shower in the morning too, but maybe it's a shower. Maybe it's a little bit of yoga with my partner or a little stretching on my own. It is the face care routine and making sure I'm taking care of my teeth really well, and then giving my pet a lot of love. And then now I'm reading. And I used to be a big reader. And I, for the longest time, convinced myself I didn't have time to read. And now I read, and I read every single night. And I read until I'm tired. And that's usually like 20, 25 minutes every night. And that's the last thing that I do. And I feel like what you said about feeling like the kind of rush, like you've taken away time from your sleep if you're trying to avoid using your phone or take that 30 minutes of time between that you're like, oh, well, I might as well just like try to go to bed. I feel like I actually got an hour back of my life. Shortly before I started that process, I remember having this thought that was like, I really want to read. I want to stretch more. I want to like have more time with my cat. I want to have that connection point with my partner at night. But like, how am I going to fit it in when I leave a yoga class at 9 o'clock and I try to go to bed by 9:30? That's ridiculous. And when I started giving myself that full hour, like going home and not being distracted by my phone, not using that time to watch TV, giving myself that full hour to put my phone down, connect with my partner, play with my cat, do my face care routine, and read, I was like, man, I get to do all the things that I wanted to do. Yeah. So I think that's a really good point, is that I'm not trying to do anything productive. I'm just trying to like live. Like we talk in yoga about being like a human doing versus a human being. And I feel like this is the time that I get to be a human being. And none of this, like, I don't have to read a certain amount of my book. I don't have to talk to my partner for a certain amount of minutes. I don't like have to do any of this. It's all self care stuff that, like you're saying in the morning, like wanting to give myself an hour to like chill and like get into my day. This is all stuff that just helps me feel calm. And before I was like running from my last thing and trying to jump into bed and convince my body, like, we're ready to go to bed. We were never ready to go to bed. We were up for hours after that, pretending that we wanted to be asleep. And now I get this extra hour back that really helps my body wind down. And I stopped looking at what time it was. I started just going to bed based off of when I'm tired. I still set my alarm for 6:30 every morning, and I put my phone down at 9:30. And when I get through all those things and I'm reading, it's like I read until I'm tired. And then I put my book down and I don't know what time it is. And I wake up the next morning and I have so much less fatigue surrounding all of this because I'm actually like going to bed when I'm tired and I sleep better. I sleep more through the night because of that and wake up less times, roll over less times, have all of those little sleep sensitive moments less times. And my body's actually finding its own circadian rhythm.
And I love that you say that because most of the time I hear, let me rush to get to sleep so that I have that extra hour in the morning to do all my sweet little routines like journal and meditate and make eggs the slow way, which I think morning routines are amazing, but I never really thought about it flipped.
To be fair, I think the morning routines are really special too, because starting your day on that note is a great way to start your day. And oftentimes, when we're able to condense that sleep time and we're not giving ourselves 9.5, 10 hours of time in bed, it gives us more time in the evening and in the mornings. So for me, like I said, it was like that whole hour before I was going to bed felt like just given time. And none of it was productive. It was all things that just helped me feel calm, relaxed, and actually prepared my body to sleep. And then waking up at 6:30 actually feels a lot easier. So that was the craziest thing that I experienced was used to give myself 9.5 to 10.5 hours in bed every night. And I still felt exhausted. And when I went down and restricted my sleep to 8 to 8.5 hours in bed each night, I feel no less tired. If anything, I feel more refreshed because my body is kind of been forced into learning to sleep during those 8 to 8.5 hours instead of having time to chill and wake up and be awake for an hour in the middle of the night and have to go to the bathroom 100 times and all of that.
That's really promising to hear that from you. Makes me feel good. I want to back it up a little bit because you're obviously very passionate about this topic. Was there a time where you did not have such an amazing sleep or a nighttime routine?
I think for most of my life, I've had anxiety about this. I remember when I was probably 7 years old, my grandfather said to me one time, like, "How are you, Mallory?" And I literally said to him, "I'm just tired." And he said, "You're always tired." And to be that young and have someone reflect on the fact that a 7 year old was saying she was always tired. And through even high school and college, I just always had issues with sleep. And I think a lot of it built up over time and created anxiety over going to bed. So then that led me to try to get in bed as soon as possible all the time and skip all of those calming, relaxing things that we can do in the evening. And just like you're saying, the morning routine can be so special and sweet. We can give that to ourselves in the evening as well. And I never gave myself that. And so I would be in bed trying to fall asleep and laying in bed for an hour or maybe more sometimes, stressing about how I wasn't sleeping and then checking the time and being like, oh my gosh, I only have 6 more hours to sleep. I only have 5 more hours to sleep. And just stressing and then not sleeping because I was stressing and then feeling exhausted because I didn't sleep. And so when I started to train my body to sleep during these very specific times and gave myself that hour of wind down, took away the blue light, gave myself the time to chill at night, then I slide right into sleep a lot better now. And I never had that experience before. I never had the hit the pillow, fall asleep quickly experience. It was always, okay, I guess I'll try, even though I don't feel tired, and trying to convince my body that we could do it.
And I think it's sweet and maybe necessary to involve your pets and your potential partner in your bedtime routine, or else maybe you won't see each other, right? Because you have to coordinate schedules and all of that. Was it a process for you at all?
I think that felt really special because my cat, especially on the days where like I have a few days where I work my full day at children's healthcare. And then I go teach yoga classes for the entire night. And so I'm gone the whole entire day. And my partner fortunately works from home. And so my cat gets like a little attention from him during the day when he can step away. But she would have very little attention and wouldn't have seen me the whole day. And I used to feel so guilty about that. And now I have this nice little routine with her where it's like, no matter what, Echo, you're going to get playtime in the evening. You're going to have that. And so I'm hoping that eventually it sinks in with her too, that she knows like mom's going to come home and no matter what, before she goes to bed, she's going to give me the playtime. And then, yeah, having the time for like that evening check-in with my partner. So I'm getting, very important connections in my evening because of that.
So besides the blue light that you mentioned, talking about circadian rhythms, and this might not apply to circadian rhythms, but what are some other problematic behaviors, let's say within like the 2 hours leading up to bedtime that you talk with your clients about?
I think trying to be too active can be kind of harmful during those times. So I think that's the time for like light yoga and stretching, even a yoga nidra or yin. I think it can be, time for walks if it's light outside and it's safe for you to go do that. But doing anything that's really getting your heart rate up too much that close to bed, it's going to be hard for your heart rate to come back down and for your body to kind of come out of your parasympathetic or into your parasympathetic nervous system, out of your sympathetic nervous system from a hard workout. I also think that there are nutrition things that we can consider here. I don't think that it's necessary for everybody to give themselves 3 hours between their last meal and going to bed. Some people, it really bothers. So that's definitely a personal thing as well. I hear from some people that they get a little bit of a stomach ache if they lay down too quickly after eating, or they might have heartburn. And those all might be from other issues as well. But you can pay attention to your own body and what it tells you. We do have a rest and digest mode in our body. So after we eat, our body wants to go into that parasympathetic, digest our food, and have a restful moment. That's the reason we're told not to swim after we eat when we're kids. So eating something before bed, a few hours, maybe like that 2.5 hour to 1.5 hour window before bed, to make sure that we feel satiated, I think can be really important, because the last thing we want to do also is get in bed at night, lay down and realize that we're hungry, and then have to get out of bed and eat again, and then lay right back down to go to sleep. So I think making sure that we've had enough food through our days and that we're able to kind of cut ourselves off before bed a few hours, and making sure we've got our movement in for the day, and just doing the most relaxing things possible after that time in the last few hours before sleep.
What about alcohol?
Yeah, this is a tough one. So alcohol is a sleep killer. It totally is wrecking your sleep. And everyone will come to me and say, "Oh, well, I feel so sleepy when I drink, or I sleep so hard." And it might help you have that fall asleep faster feeling, but it's really disrupting your quality of sleep. So truly, like, no alcohol, and caffeine is another one. Glad you brought up alcohol and made me think of that. Caffeine's another one, like not close to bedtime. And caffeine, we're really looking for like 6 to 10 hours before bed to be the last time that you have caffeine. And everyone's sensitivity is a little bit different on that too. For most people, it's like you're going to bed in the 9 to 11 o'clock hours. You're trying to cut off caffeine at 2 p.m. and give yourself time to really pay attention. For a while, I noticed there would be nights where my mind would be racing when I'd be going to sleep. And it would be days that I like slipped on that and had caffeine like at 3 p.m. or something. So that might be something also to just pay attention to within yourself. If you're having one of those nights where you're having a hard time getting to bed or not feeling calm and relaxed and ready to sleep, you could think about when you last had caffeine. And you might note the next day how you feel after drinking. If you do have alcohol, like, okay, maybe I felt like I fell asleep quickly, but do I really feel later in the day like I had good quality sleep and I felt rested?
Yeah, and isn't for going back to caffeine, I think this is kind of like a vicious cycle that I've recognized in myself and others. But it's like we, for one reason or another, we miss some hours of sleep, or our sleep quality is low. So we wake up tired and drink coffee. That gets us through the first few hours of the workday. And then we crash around 3 p.m. And then we drink a coffee. And then we can't fall asleep. And then we wake up tired. And then we drink coffee. And then we do the same exact thing every day.
Totally. I think this is a really good point because caffeine can affect our waking as well as our going to sleep. And so many people probably listening wake up and the first thing that they do is have their cup of coffee or their cup of caffeinated tea in the morning. And especially if you haven't had a good night's sleep, like you said, you're going to be looking for that sort of boost. So caffeine in the morning can actually disrupt our blood sugar balance through the day and our cortisol production. Caffeine over time on an empty stomach can continue to really wreak havoc on both of those systems and mess with our cortisol production so much that our body might not even start to produce it in the most natural way anymore. So shifting from our nighttime routine to how do we transition into waking up in the morning, having some food within an hour of waking, especially for women, that food having protein and fiber in it, at least 30 grams of protein, somewhere between 30 and 40 grams is ideal. And 10 grams of fiber in the morning helps with that blood sugar balance and helps women's hormones stay balanced through the morning. And we have a natural cortisol spike that happens in the morning. That's what's supposed to make us feel like we wake up. If we have coffee before we have any food, oftentimes we're wrecking that cortisol spike and or making that cortisol spike too high. So if we get the jitters in the morning, we get really, really energized, and then we feel that crash, that could be an indication that coffee is affecting your cortisol. So best practice would be wake up, have some food within an hour, wait to have your coffee for Reedy's face right now. Wait to have your coffee or your caffeinated beverage in the morning until 2 hours after you wake up. That gives your body time to balance itself before you're introducing caffeine, which is a drug, to your system. And then you're right, about 7 hours after we wake, we have a little dip in energy. And that often is that 2 to 3 p.m. crash. And so then we're looking for an additional caffeine. The caffeine at that time doesn't affect your cortisol nearly as much or your hormones nearly as much. So it's actually kind of a safer time if you can hit a perfect window between waking up the 7 hours and not having it be within like 6 hours of your bedtime. So that like right at 2 p.m., cool. Maybe have yourself some coffee or some tea at that point. But ideally, really waiting in the morning for a little bit longer than most of us are comfortable to have that caffeine.
That is the only thing you've touched on so far that I'm experiencing some resistance towards, but I'll work on it. What else do you have to share about sleep hygiene and tips? I mean, overall, I think it's been really interesting because I would assume from a nutritionist, we would hear like, eat this and this much and take this supplement and all these things to promote restful sleep. But really, you've been taking a very holistic approach and talking about the structure of your day and the why behind some of these patterns, which I think is really cool. Where would you take it from here, like based on what we've already talked about?
Yeah, I think there are plenty of foods and supplements that can help us feel restful. I think that going back to basics is where I have always gone with my nutrition and wellness coaching practice. So we don't need, for instance, in nutrition to be creating fancy TikTok recipes that have 35 ingredients. Like we literally just need a protein, a whole grain, and fruits and veggies. Like that's the basis, you know? So I think that with sleep, it's going back to like, if we were to go back in time 60 years, what would this have looked like? We might have had TV, but we would have had a very small TV with very limited programming. And that would have been a family event, more likely. Like we're sitting down after dinner to watch 1 hour program on TV. And then there probably isn't anything else scheduled for the night, maybe the news. So if we went back to that time, we would have low lighting in our houses. We wouldn't have these bright LEDs and fluorescent lighting. We wouldn't have cell phones. We wouldn't have all of the blue light. Oftentimes, we would be utilizing natural light in our homes more to reduce energy rates and electric bills. Might not even have electricity if we went back a little bit further, and you would be lighting candles as soon as it got dark. Candlelight is a great way to tell your body that it's time to go to bed. So we went back to those original practices, the really simple things where maybe we sat around in the evening and we talked with our loved ones, we read a book, we played a game, did something like that. Or maybe we were on a farm and we went outside and we took care of like last things before the night was rolling down. That would expose us to our sunset light. It would help us do calm things before bed. We wouldn't have access to that blue light and all of that. So I think going back to basics is exactly what we need when it comes to this topic, and really kind of like all wellness topics. We've spiraled with a lot of things in the world.
Yeah, totally. Do you have any pieces of literature that you would recommend for our listeners, or any resources that have been helpful for you in your life?
I really love the book When by Daniel Pink. And I think I told Reedy this. So I think she'll put it in some sort of Highland publication soon if she hasn't already. That book talks a lot about the timing. So he discusses circadian rhythm. And I actually really recommend listening to it on audiobook because he reads it himself. So that's cool. But it talks about the timing of like everything in our lives. And so, for instance, that mid-afternoon crash that you talked about with energy, he talks about studies that have shown, for instance, in healthcare settings where the most medical malpractice and mistakes are happening in the afternoon during that slot. He says at certain times of the day, we're better doing more active things. At certain times of the day, we're better at using our brains and doing critical thinking. And I feel like that's really helpful for understanding our circadian rhythm too, is like understanding that we have segments of our day, and based off of our hormone levels, our sleep, our rest, our eating times, all of that, our body is primed to do different things. So it might be that at certain time of the day, you have a meeting, and maybe that meeting could be a walking meeting, and it would probably be much more productive than everybody sitting at a desk with their coffee in their hands because it's 2 p.m. and everyone's half asleep. Or right in the morning, he often says, is great for critical thinking and projects. So if you have a creative project or something that's really data oriented or specific, that's a great time to work on those. So I think that's a cool way to tie this into your whole day, where you're seeing how a consistent sleep pattern creates a consistent waking pattern, which creates those blocks of time during the day where we're productive in different ways, and helping us understand the rises and falls in our energy and our hormones over time.
I think this is so, I don't want to use the word promising again, because I feel like some people get pretty perfectionistic about optimizing sleep, and it doesn't have to be that exact. And I think it's really just this idea that our bodies are built to be in a natural pattern, and our lifestyles often disrupt that pattern. So I think it's just finding alignment. And I think that's where, the whole yoga life ties into everything.
For sure. I do have a few other additional tips that just came to mind that like we've gone in so many different directions today and these haven't come up yet. There are also things that we can do in our sleep habit or in our sleep habitat that make our sleep easier. So temperature is really important for our sleep. So we want temperature typically between like 65 and 69 degrees is ideal. So sleeping cooler can be helpful. Our body has to drop in temperature to be able to fall asleep. That's another thing that is associated with like that exercise later in the day, is you're heating up your body and then expecting it to just relax and drop in temperature to allow that sleep to happen. Reedy and I were talking before we started recording, and we both mentioned we sleep with eye masks. I think that can be really helpful. It's helpful when you're living somewhere where blocking out light is hard, or if you have any little flashing lights in your bedroom, you've got devices, any of that can act as blue light. So a router from your Wi-Fi, um, a charger that has a little light on it, like all of that is blue light and your eyes are taking that in. So trying to rid your bedroom of that can be really helpful, and using the eye mask when you need to get through the spaces that aren't as dark as you'd like them. One challenge with that is that our body does naturally want to rise with the sun. And when you block out the light in your eyes overnight, you kind of lose the option of your body noticing that it's getting lighter outside. I would still say that having it dark through the night and the quality of your sleep through the evening would trump that morning arousal, because we're probably choosing a time that we're waking up these days. And then noise. So sound machines can be really helpful. Earplugs can be helpful if you're a light sleeper. Just trying to eliminate things through your night that are going to disturb you. So those are just some additional tips for your environment.
I love it. And I have an eye mask that it forms like a donut around your eyes so it doesn't scrunch your eyelashes. Just side note. It's really amazing. Well, Mallory, this has been so fun, and another topic that I just really could talk all day about. It looks like you have one more thing to add.
Yeah, I just want to do a little wrap up because we've talked about so many things. So I'd love to take us through like the getting home in the evening to the waking up and all the things that we've talked about. So ideally, when we're getting home at night, we're able to take care of all the things that we would need to take care of on our computer, have our TV time, have all of our device time, and then put our phones down 1 hour, at least 1 hour before bed. 1 hour is like the recommended time, scientifically backed 1 hour. So no more blue light after that 1 hour mark. And then give yourself a really beautiful, cozy, sweet bedtime routine, whatever that is for you, stuff that makes you feel calm, and allow yourself to actually feel tired before you close your eyes and try to go to bed. So even if it's at the time that you think you're supposed to be trying to fall asleep, give yourself an extra 10 or 15 minutes reading or doing something restful that will actually help you feel tired before you try to close your eyes, versus trying to force your body to do something it's telling you it's not ready for. Try to set your bedtime and wake time at the same time every day. Within 30 minutes is ideal. And then specifically in the morning, waiting until after food for caffeine, hopefully having some food within the first hour of waking.
And camp out in your backyard. Go camping. All right, everyone, go camping. Thank you so much, Mallory. This has been so enjoyable, and you can catch Mallory teaching at our West Side location on Wednesday nights. Yeah. Okay, Mallory, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Your support really does matter. This podcast is produced by Highland Yoga with music by our very own teaching team member, Lauren C. If you want to learn more about Highland Yoga, visit our website at highland-yoga.com or email us to sign up for our weekly newsletter at info@highland-yoga.com. See you next week for more of Find Your Flow.